So we'll start understanding this gene regulation in prokaryotes using this representative model, this representative operon, lac operon. As I said, this is the simplest of operons, and it is an inducible operon. It is an inducible operon. Inducible means unless that specific substrate is present, it remains shut off, and as soon as that specific substrate comes into the medium, the enzymes which the genes in this operon code for, they will be synthesized. That is what is meant by enzyme induction. So this is an example of inducible operon, and the inducer over here is the substrate, that molecule, that metabolite, that compound which is responsible for initiating the synthesis of those enzymes. That inducer molecule in this case is lactose. So lactose is the substrate. There are three structural genes. They are named as LAC-Z, LAC-Y, and LAC-A. These are the three structural genes. So we'll see shortly what are their functions. And there is one regulator gene. Regulatory gene also, you can say regulatory gene. And it's called as LAC-I. Okay, LAC stand for lactose. So we are talking about lactose operon. Okay, so it is an inducible operon. You understand what is meant by inducible operon? That means unless that specific substrate is present, the genes in this operon, they will remain shut off, they will remain switch off, they will not be expressed, and they will not be synthesizing mRNA, and mRNA will not be translated to give you the enzymes because that substrate is not there, and therefore those enzymes will also not be there. Okay, let us try and understand what are the structural features of this operon. So I am drawing the structural features of this operon over here. This is the DNA in which you have a promoter and an operator, and then you have these three structural genes, LAC-Z, LAC-Y, and LAC-A. And then there is a transcription termination signal over here. Upstream here you have the regulator gene LAC-I, and it has got its independent promoter where RNA polymerase will bind and will transcribe LAC-I. So these are the structural features. As I said earlier, this is a very simple operon. Okay. Now, what does this LAC-Z do? LAC-Z codes for a protein which is 125 kilodalton monomer. The active form is a tetramer. Tetramer of identical subunits, and the name is beta-galactosidase. It's an enzyme, beta-galactosidase. LAC-Y also codes for a protein which is 30 kilodalton. It's a monomer, and it is called as a membrane-bound enzyme is there, membrane-bound protein is there. It is called as permease. LAC-A, it codes for a 30 kilodalton monomer. The active form in this case is a dimer, and it codes for an enzyme called trans-acetylase. Okay, LAC-I, it codes for a protein 38 kilodalton monomer. Active form is a tetramer, and the protein is called as a repressor protein. All right. So these are the three structural genes. They code for these three proteins: beta galactosidase, which is an enzyme which will catabolize lactose into its constituents, galactose and glucose. Permease and transacetylase, these are responsible for uptake and transport of lactose from medium to the bacterial cell. Right? LAC-I is the regulator gene, and as you can see over here, it is located upstream. This is the start point. So it is located upstream. Usually the regulator gene and the control elements are located upstream, the structural genes. So these are the control elements, promoter. Then within the promoter, there is a site called operator. This LAC-I has an independent promoter. This is the promoter where RNA polymerase will independently bind and will transcribe LAC-I. LAC-I codes for a 38 kilodalton monomer. Okay, and the active form, the four monomers, they assimilate, they associate to form a tetramer. Okay, identical subunit, and it is a repressor protein. Okay, it is a repressor protein. It goes and bind to the operator. Its binding site is operator, right? So these are the structural features of LAC operon. Here you can see there is a transcription termination signal. So RNA polymerase bound over here will transcribe these three structural genes, and the transcription will be terminated over here. All right. So hope you have understood the structural features of LAC operon. It's pretty simple, nothing much complicated about it. So let me, now we'll go. All right. So let's say you have a situation where lactose is absent. The bacteria is surviving, is living in an environment where lactose is absent. So what do you think? When lactose is not there, these three enzymes coded by these three genes, LAC-Z, LAC-Y, and LAC-A, okay, they are responsible for uptake and catabolism of lactose in the bacterial cell. So when the lactose is not there in the medium and the bacteria doesn't know whether in its lifetime the lactose is going to appear or not, okay, is there any point for the bacterial cell to keep synthesizing these enzymes? And the answer is no. When there is no lactose around, there is no point keeping an inventory of these enzymes which are required for uptake and catabolism of lactose. Obviously, when the lactose comes into the medium, it should have that capability, it should have that flexibility that it can switch over and very swiftly it can synthesize these three enzymes which are required for the uptake of the lactose and its catabolism, right? So when lactose is not there, okay, how this operon, how these three genes, structural genes, they are switched off, they remain switched off. And I'm trying to answer you that particular question. So what happens when lactose is not there? This LAC-I is getting expressed. It synthesizes a monomer. Now you know it's a 38 kilodalton monomer. So this is a monomer. Four such monomeric units, they associate, they combine, and the active form is a tetramer. So you have a tetramer, right? Now this tetramer, which is a repressor protein, right? What does it do? It goes and bind to the operator region here. So it will physically occupy this position. Operator, which is lying between the promoter and the structural gene, that operator region, a small stretch of DNA, with partially overlapping sites with the promoter. Okay, this repressor protein goes and occupy that particular site. It has got a good affinity, great affinity for this region, so it will go and occupy this. So when it is bound, when repressor protein in its active form, means tetrameric form, when it is bound over here, obviously RNA polymerase cannot bind because these two sites are partially overlapping. There is a partial overlapping of these two sites. So when operator is occupied, RNA polymerase cannot come and bind to the promoter region. And as a result of that, when RNA polymerase cannot bind, there will be no transcription. No transcription means no messenger RNA will be formed, right? Messenger RNA will not be formed. And since messenger RNA is not there, there will be no translation. Means no protein synthesis will take place. So you will not have those three enzymes. Okay, you will not have those three enzymes. So because RNA polymerase cannot bind here at the promoter region, so transcription will not take place, and since transcription is not there, messenger RNA will not be formed, and as a result of that there will be no translation and there will be no protein synthesis. Those three enzymes which are required for uptake and catabolism of lactose, they will not be synthesized. So that is how, when lactose is not there, this operon remains switched off. We'll be using this word very often: switched off, switched on. So this operon will remain switched off. The genes, the structural genes will not be expressed. Okay, and this is the mechanism, very simple mechanism. A repressor protein is synthesized. It associates to form an active form, tetramer, and this tetramer goes and bind to the operator region, physically obstructing the binding of RNA polymerase to this promoter region, and as a result of that, transcription will not take place, right? So this is how, or this is what happens when lactose is not there. Let us see what happens when lactose appears into the medium. So I will have to draw the lac operon once again. So this is lac operon. So you have promoter, and within the promoter you have operator. Then you have these three structural genes like Z, like Y, and like A. And then you have a regulatory gene like I with its own independent promoter. Now we are talking of a situation where lactose has appeared into the medium. So what you have done, just to see what bacteria does, what you have done, you have added a spoonful of lactose into the medium, and immediately bacteria should recognize it, and immediately it should start utilizing that lactose. Rapidly it should be able to switch over from metabolizing something else to metabolizing lactose. So how does it happen? Okay, so LAC-I gets expressed. So you have a repressor monomer synthesized. This repressor monomer, assimilates to form a tetramer, which is its active form. Okay, and now what has happened? Lactose has appeared. This is lactose. Lactose is there in the medium. This is the molecule of lactose. So this repressor protein has binding site for lactose. These are the binding site of lactose. Each subunit has one binding site for the lactose. So lactose serves as an inducer. Okay, so it binds, and as a result of this binding, it induces a conformational change into the repressor protein. So it's a repressor protein bound to the inducer, inducer is bound, and as a result of that binding, there is a conformational change. Okay, and conformational change is indicated by change in the shape. And now, because of this conformational change, this repressor protein cannot go and bind to the operator. Because of the conformational change that it has, that the binding of inducer induced in it, this repressor protein cannot go and bind to the operator, right? And as a result of that, operator is the promoter is vacant, which will be occupied by this is the RNA pol. RNA pol can now bind to the promoter. Reason is that operator is vacant. The repressor protein cannot bind to this. And RNA pol will bind. It will transcribe these structural genes into a messenger RNA. So you will have a messenger RNA, polycistronic messenger RNA. You know, there are 3 consecutive cistrons. Okay, you understand what is meant by polycistronic messenger RNA, and it will be translated as well. As soon as the transcription begins, translation will follow, and you will have those 3 proteins synthesized. And what do these 3 proteins will do? These 3 proteins will take up the lactose from the medium, which has been made available, which has appeared into the medium, and they will the bacterial cell will be able to catabolize it. Okay, so this is protein number 1, beta galactosidase, this is permease, and this is transacetylase. So these 3 proteins will be synthesized immediately, and the response is so swift that in no time you will have literally hundreds of copies of these 3 enzymes. Okay, and very rapidly the bacteria will be able to utilize the available lactose into the medium. Okay, and as soon as, let's say, from the situation lactose present to lactose absent, so you have added a spoonful of lactose and that has disappeared in, let's say, about 10 minutes time. So what will happen next? As soon as lactose disappears, this is not going to be there. So you will not have this, you know, inducer will not be there. So it will not be able to bind to the repressor protein. So you will not have this conformational change. This repressor protein has got a higher affinity for the operator region. So it will go and occupy the operator region. It will occupy the operator region. Okay, and thereby physically obstructing RNA polymerase to bind to the promoter. And as a result of that, further transcription will stop, further translation will stop, and in no time, these 3 enzymes will start depleting from several hundred copies in the bacterial cell. They will come down to their basal level, something like 5 copies, 6 copies, each of these enzymes will be maintained into the bacterial cell. So this in nutshell, a very simple, very elegant mechanism of regulation of genes in bacterial cell. Okay, this is a very simplified version. This is the simplest of operon. Okay, this is a representative operon, simplest of operon to understand the mechanism of gene regulation. All right. So the next thing that comes is, let's say if there is a mutation okay, if there is a mutation in say any one of the structural gene, let's say leg Z, what will happen? If there is a mutation in leg Z is one of the 3 structural genes. So what is going to happen? So when there is a mutation in a structural gene, we have learned in the last lecture, only that particular gene and its product will get affected. Okay, that means leg Z, it may be transcribed, but the product that it will have, that beta galactosidase, may not be biologically active, may not be, depending upon where the mutation has taken place. May not be biologically active. It will be mutant and it may not be biologically active. Okay. So when there is a mutation in any one of the structural genes, that particular gene and its gene product and its product, that particular protein, only that will get affected. Okay. That means bacteria will continue to uptake and transport lactose from medium into the cell. But once in the cell, if beta galactosidase is mutant, it is not biologically active, it will not be able to catabolize it. Okay. So when there is a mutation in any one of the structural genes, that particular gene and its product only gets affected. Okay. Let us understand, take a different example. There is a mutation in regulator gene. Mutation in regulatory gene, that is LAC-I. If LAC-I is mutant, what is going to happen? What will happen? When there is a mutation in LAC-I, what will happen? So I told you in my last lecture that when there is a mutation in regulatory gene, and that is how you differentiate between the regulator gene and structural gene. So when there is a mutation in regulator gene, okay, whatever it will synthesize will be mutant. And because of mutation in it, this will not be able to go and bind to the operator. It will never be able to go and bind to the operator. And as a result of that, irrespective whether you have lactose present or lactose absent into the medium, the operon will be, the genes will be continuously expressed. What do you call it? You call it as constitutively expressed. Constitutively expressed. Irrespective whether lactose is present or absent or present, right? Irrespective whether lactose is there or lactose is not there, these genes will be continuously expressed. You call it as, technically the word is constitutive expression. So when there is a mutation in a regulatory gene, all the structural genes which it controls get affected. This is an example. Okay, when there is a mutation in regulatory gene like I, all the structural genes, three of them, like Z, like Y, and like A, all of them are going to be continuously expressed, and you will have those three proteins synthesized all the time. What we call it as, we call expression constitutive expression. We call that enzyme synthesis constitutive enzyme synthesis. Okay, irrespective whether the bacteria needs it or bacteria doesn't need, bacteria do not need it. Okay, bacteria needs it means whether lactose is present or whether lactose is absent. Irrespective of that, these three genes will be expressed. So this is how you can differentiate between structural gene and regulatory gene. I will repeat it once again. When there is a mutation in structural gene, any one structural gene, only that particular gene and its product, means protein, gets affected. But when there is a mutation in a regulatory gene, all the structural genes it controls, they are going to get affected. Okay. So now let us move to a little more complicated version. Okay, so now we have just learned that if there is a mutation in a regulatory gene, the operon is constitutively expressed. The operon is constitutively expressed. So let us assume that there is a mutation in LAC-I. LAC-I is mutant. Okay. So now you know what happens when LACI is mutant. So you get a mutant repressor protein synthesized, and this is not capable of going over there and binding there. And as a result of that, this operon is constitutively expressed. Now, to make things a little more complicated, what I am doing is, let us say this particular cell wherein this operon is there, bacterial cell. Okay, now I have made it partially diploid for LACI. What I have done is, I have added a wild type LACI. This is LACI with a promoter. I have added a wild type LACI into the bacterial cell. Okay, this LACI, the original one, is mutant, minus sign. It is mutant. What I have done, I have added a wild type, means normal LACI, and that is called as, I have made this cell, this bacterial cell, partially diploid or LACI. Okay, so now there are two alleles of this gene LACI present in the bacterial cell. One is a mutant allele and the other one is a normal allele. Please understand the question what I am saying. I have made this bacterial cell which has a mutant LACI partially diploid for LACI by adding a wild type LACI. What will happen under these circumstances? So when you have a wild type LACI, this has its independent promoter, so it will be transcribed and translated to give you a, let me make it in a different color. So it will be transcribed and translated to give you a normal repressor. A normal repressor will be synthesized, and this normal repressor, because it is normal, when lactose is not there, please understand, when lactose is not there, this will be able to go and bind to the operator region. It will occupy the operator. When lactose is not there, when the bacteria doesn't want any of these three enzymes transcribed and translated, genes transcribed and enzyme synthesized, okay? So when lactose is not there, by making it partially diploid, by adding a wild type LACI, you can stop the transcription of these structural genes, okay? Genes which were constitutively expressed now have been stopped from being expressed because of the addition of a wild type LACI. Okay, in genetic parlance, this is, you can write it down, it is referred to as wild type inducibility is dominant over mutant constitutivity. Very important sentence. Wild type inducibility is dominant over mutant constitutivity, right? So you can concentrate on this after the lecture also, to what I am saying. Original LACI is mutant, and as a result of that, the operon is constitutively expressed. We have made it diploid, partially diploid, by adding a wild type LACI into the bacterial cell. This wild type LACI will get transcribed, it will synthesize a normal repressor, and this normal repressor will go and occupy the operator in the absence of lactose. Okay, in presence of lactose, what happens? When lactose molecule comes, so you know, when lactose molecule comes, it binds here. And causes a conformational change. Okay, and as a result of that, it cannot go and bind over here. So in presence of lactose, we do not want this repressor to be occupying the operator, so that RNA polymerase can occupy the promoter and those genes can be transcribed, right? Okay, so this is one example that we have taken, we have understood. Let us understand it taking another example. Let me once again draw this lac operon for you. So you have a promoter, you have operator, you have leg Z, you have leg Y, and you have leg A. There is a leg I here, and there is a promoter over here. Okay. So what I have done is, let's say what happens when the operator is mutant, O is mutant. What will happen when the operator is mutant? So when the operator is mutant, this LAC-I will be transcribed. You will have the repressor protein, you will have the tetramer, and all the time, irrespective whether lactose is present or lactose is absent, irrespective, because the operator is mutant, this will not be able to go and bind to the operator, because the site is mutant. This operator site is mutant, and as a result of that, irrespective whether lactose is present or lactose is absent, irrespective of that, this repressor protein will not be able to go and bind to the operator. And as a result of that, what is going to happen? These three genes, they will be constitutively expressed. Okay, and you will have those three proteins synthesized constitutively all the time, irrespective whether lactose is present. When lactose is present, you do require these proteins, but when lactose is absent, you don't require this protein. The bacterial cell doesn't require this protein. But in spite of that, because of a mutation in the operator region, okay, these three proteins will be continuously synthesized. Bacteria needs it or bacteria doesn't need it, right? Now what I've done, taking a cue from the last example, I have made it partially diploid for operator. I have taken an operator. This meeting will close in another 3 minutes. So I have taken a operator region which is normal. Okay, and I have made this cell partially diploid for the operator. Now what will happen? The original operator is mutant. So we have made it diploid by adding a wild type operator. What will happen? So nothing will happen. It will continue to get expressed. It will continue to be constitutively expressed. Okay, it will continue to be constitutively expressed, irrespective whether lactose is present or lactose is absent. Okay, what is the difference? Because this operator is said to be cis-acting. Cis-acting. So what is meant by cis-acting? You can write down sites which function by being recognized. Are called cis-acting. So this operator site functions by being recognized. Who recognizes it? The repressor protein recognizes it. Okay, so therefore this is called as cis-acting. So cis-acting sites, okay, when you make it partially diploid, it won't have any effect. Okay, I'll tell you some more differences in tomorrow's lecture. Vis-a-vis the transacting, LAC-I is transacting, is sites which function by synthesizing a diffusible product. They are called as transacting. Transacting. Okay, so LAC-I is transacting because it codes for a diffusible product, a protein.